You're listening to Cattails, the podcast of SLC Faculty Local 417, your union connection. Each episode, we bring you real stories from our members, practical tips on your rights, and the kind of information that helps us all move forward.
Welcome to Cattails, the podcast. I'm your host, Julie White. We've got a great show lined up for you this week. We're going to start with our first Get to Know Your LEC segment, featuring a chat with Local 417 President Christina Decarie. What's an LEC, you ask? It's the Local Executive Committee, the group of people who have been elected as stewards to represent and advocate for the interest of our CAAT-A OPSU-SEFPO members at the local level. And we're always looking for interested people to step up. Watch for details on our annual general meeting in the new year. Later in the show, we'll check in with Lead Steward Gillian Axten for a quick episode of Is It a Gripe or a Grievance? We'll shine a spotlight on Professor Polina Buchan, who's going to chat about her passion project, and we'll get an update in the 411 on the 417 segment on our new composite local structure. So sit back and settle in for today's show. Joining me now is SLC Faculty President Christina Decarie. Okay, so we're starting with the rapid fire. So this is the Get to Know Christina Decarie a little bit better. So the first question, who is your hero?
That is such a good question. So when we think about a hero is the person that we admire, who has attributes that wish we had more of for ourselves. The person who rescues us, the person whose wisdom or actions swoop in and save us, come to us when we need them.
You're stalling.
I am stalling. So what I'm doing,
Rapid fire.
I'm practicing a Toastmasters trick. And when we are asked to speak off the cuff without preparation, we have several strategies that we can use to buy time and to allow our brain, the wheels in our brain, to turn. So I'm not going to identify, well, maybe I will identify an individual person. And I'm not saying that this person is my only hero, but this person is an example of how heroes show up in our lives and how they help us in our careers and in our life. And when I first started working at the college, I was part-time and I had another job, full-time elsewhere. And so I wasn't really on campus. I only came onto campus to teach. And then after one semester of that, I became partial load. And by some small miracle, an office was found for me because somebody was on leave for one semester. And I was office mates with a man named John Anderson down in the skilled trades wing. And he was, in the final few years of his career by that point. And I don't know what I would have done without him, because before I would leave for class, I would be just completely all a dither. I had no idea what I was doing. And he would ask me what I was doing and I would tell him what I was doing. And I always had something that I couldn't quite put the finishing touch in. Like I couldn't get the plane to land. And he would help me figure out how to get the plane to land. So then I'd come back from class and he would always check in with me. How did it go? And I would say something, oh, John, it was so awful. And I would tell him everything that went wrong, how I'd blown it from beginning to end. And he would listen to me and he would smile with great interest. And then he would say, wow, you're a natural. John, what do I do? And he would tell me everything that I had done right that I could not see for myself. And then he would help me connect what I wanted to do differently next time. And when he said that to me, oh, you're a natural, he believed it. And because he believed it, I believed it. And I was able to pick myself up and try again. And so now 22, 23 years later, I still remember what he taught me about teaching somebody. And even today in class, I had a student who was expressing some concern about her presentation, natural concerns, natural worries. And I talked her through it and I talked her up. And during the presentation, she completely froze. And I thought she might cry. She was not breathing. And she looked down at her notes and I could tell that she literally could not read. The function was not working. And the class was amazingly supportive. She was amazing. I just said, why don't you take a breath and look at your slides and see what happens? And she finished her presentation. She did fantastic. And what I learned from John, I hope I did for her. That was my goal, to do that for her. because in her debrief, I thanked her for what we all learned today about fear and perseverance and bravery and learning. And I learned that from John, and he deserves all the credit in the world for teaching me what it means to teach, what it means to help somebody through something. So he's not my only hero, but he is somebody that I admire and I look to and I try to draw from to find my own strength, because he retired a long time ago and I still miss him at work all the time. So he's not there for me physically. So I have to remember what it is that he taught me and gave to me.
What's the most embarrassing thing you've done on an MS Teams call?
I am so afraid of doing something embarrassing because, of course, during the pandemic, there are all kinds of stories of people doing very inappropriate things to the extent where you realize that person was experiencing a stressor that was causing odd behavior. And so our response should be compassion and grace. And I can't imagine the horror of being them and having gone through that. I'm just going to say I've never embarrassed myself on a Teams
Okay.
call.
That's a fair answer. That's a fair
I don't
answer.
know. I have actually been quite hyper aware of, early lessons from the pandemic. I'm pretty careful.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know how to perform a magic trick?
I do not.
Are you an early bird or a deadline demon?
Oh my God, early bird. And even if I'm not finished something, I will have an early draft of something quite early. And then I will polish later. I do like to have a little bit of pressure. I like to feel some pressure in order to get something done, but I have to have at least a draft or a plan, and I have to have planned having the time available. I'm a worrier. I'm a terrible worrier.
What's your guilty pleasure?
Puzzles. So I do every single puzzle every morning with my morning coffee. And you would be astonished how many puzzles I get done in just my morning coffee. And it's to the point where a friend recently pointed out to me that there was yet another puzzle available on the New York Times Games app. And I was like, oh my God, I have a full-time job. We have to stop. I do the New York Times crossword every single day and have done it every single day for about 20 years. And I do Wordle and GeoGuessr and Squirtle and Connections and Spelling Bee. And
You'll love it when they tell you you're a genius.
I am a genius. Thank you.
Every
And then-
day.
And the first day that I didn't know that beyond genius, there was a queen bee. It took me quite a while and I hit queen bee by accident. And I was like, oh my God, I can be even better. So yeah, I do all of them. And I do puzzles obsessively. And then I have the app for the New York Times crossword. So I'm going back. The archive goes back, I think, to 1992. And I'm trying to do every single puzzle since 1992. I'm working on that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the cringiest thing you did as a teenager?
It was all cringe. Oh my gosh. The graduation photo from my grade 8 graduation, I'm wearing the fingerless lace gloves a la Madonna. They were great. That might have been it. That might have been it.
Okay. What's your go-to comfort food?
So many choices. So many choices. The big joke around the household is that I will say things like, oh, I don't really like sweets. I don't really care for sweets. And then all the sweets in the house disappear because I've eaten all of them. I love deep fried foods, and I guess I should admit that I enjoy sweet.
That's fair. That's fair. What game show do you want to be on?
Do, 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 do. Is that The Price is Right? So what would I like to be on? Price is Right would be fun because, of course, like many people my age, I grew up with sick days watching The Price is Right on TV in the morning. Not Jeopardy. The pressure would kill me. I would not do well on Jeopardy. I would say The Price is Right, not only because it's iconic, but because the prizes were like off the hook. Cars and RVs and trips.
When you were a child, what profession did you want to be?
I wanted to be, want to go back to like early childhood. At one point, I wanted to be an airplane. I didn't understand about the limitations placed on us as mere mortals. I wanted to be an airplane. Then I wanted to be a towel for a brief moment because I thought towels were like really cool. I wanted to be a witch, like with the pointed hat and everything. Come on. Who wouldn't want to be a witch, right? You ride a broom, you do cool things. And then, quite seriously, I wanted to be a vet, not because of any scientific tendencies, not strong in the sciences, but just because I love animals so much. I just love animals. And so I wanted to be a vet. And then I don't know, as I got older, I mean, I've never really known what I wanted to be when I grew. I still don't know. Like, I got into teaching purely by accident. I did not like it at first. Both of my parents were teachers, and I just looked at how hard they worked, and I was like, I don't want to do that. But ugh, hard work. I didn't understand the reward that they felt. They didn't really talk about their work and what it meant to them. They didn't complain about it, and they didn't talk about it. I know now that they both loved their work very deeply, but it was just they didn't talk about work. So I happened upon it by accident. And when I first started, I didn't really like it. And I realize now that I didn't really like it because in my experience, when I first started, um, it was so much information and so much was new. And I was trying to learn what I was teaching, and I couldn't really pay attention to the students. I was just so caught up in the material. And it was when I stopped being caught up in the material and was able to really just focus on the students and the relationship with the students. I believe that teaching is a relationship. And when I was able to focus on that, then I really learned to love what I do. But I never chose teaching per se, right? It was an accident that I happened upon it. And it was an accident that I stuck with it long enough to realize that I loved it.
We're going to come back to that in a few minutes when we get into some of your very specific teaching kinds of questions. From SLC, who do you want as a team member if we have a zombie apocalypse?
That is a great question. So, not completely unrelated. I've been on a walkout strike twice now, right? 2006 and then 2017. And especially in the 2017 strike, because I was more involved, because I was a steward, you realize that we had everybody we needed in order to run the world should there be a zombie apocalypse, right? We have electricians, we have plumbers, we have carpenters, like we have all the trades. We have healthcare professionals, we have nurses, we have doctors, we have PSWs, we have vet techs. So one person said, oh, we've got everything we need, but we don't have dentists. And then somebody said, but we have vets and they know how to do dentistry on animals. And it really, they were all we had. I'd be fine with a vet taking care of my dentistry for me. And then, of course, we have marketers and we have communicators and we have accountants. We have everything, right? So who are we going to pick? Who's the one person I'm going to pick? I don't know. I'm going to pick somebody, I would say, I would either pick somebody from the trades who has multiple skill set, because some of our profs have tickets in more than one trade, right? So you want to pick the person with multiple tickets. But then you want healthcare. And thinking about the vets in particular, they can do dentistry and they're not human doctors, but they are doctors who have to figure out how to care for all kinds of animals who can't communicate with them. So I would feel confident that they could translate their care to me. So if I had to choose, I'd choose either a vet or I would choose somebody from the skilled trades who has more than one ticket. I'm not going to name names.
Perfect. That's a great answer. Well thought through, too.
Well, I've thought about it.
Yeah. I noticed there were no politicians in there.
There were no politicians. Yeah, that's not something. Well, no, we do. We've had people who, Rick Brzee is now an MPP. Is he an MP or an MPP?
MPP.
MPP.
He's provincial,
and he
yeah.
was support staff and part-time partial load
Hmm.
faculty for us. Yeah.
All right. Last one on the quick rapid fire. If you had to delete one app forever, what would most ruin your life?
What would most ruin my life? That's the only one. The New York Times Games app. Done. Thank you.
All right. Let's get back to kind of how you fell into teaching. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and kind of what you were doing to fall into teaching?
Sure. So I was working at Queen's full-time. I was an office administrator for a department that no longer exists. It was called the Southern African Research Center, and it was a center that was like an umbrella for projects that were focused on the Southern African region. And I had been doing that. It was a contract job. It's the kind of contract that you get a 3-month contract, and then it's renewed for 1 year, and then it's a 1-month contract, and then you get a 2-year contract. So it was never permanent, although it felt permanent, and it was a good job. And it afforded me a lot of opportunities that were very interesting. Like I used to travel to the Southern African region for the job, right? It was cool. And I met people from all over the world who were doing very interesting work. So all kinds of valuable experience. And Queen's is a good employer, and I was very happy at Queen's. And then Kathy Sheehan, who coordinated the office administration program at the college, she retired a few years ago. I had known her since I was a teenager because she and my mother were office mates, and my mother taught in the office administration program. So I had known her for a long time. I was in an investment club with Kathy, and I was the secretary for the investment club and had been for a couple of years. And she said to me if I'd ever considered teaching at the college. And without hesitation, I said no. And she said, well, I was just wondering if there's a course that we need somebody for, and I was going to put your name forward if you were interested. And I said, well, I don't know. What's the course? And she said, it's called Office Procedures. Pardon my French, but I said, what the hell is an office procedure? And she said, it's that stuff that you do every day at your job, Christina, as an office administrator. I'm like, oh, I didn't know how to name, right? I didn't know it was called a procedure. So I said, that would be great. Yes, please put my name forward. Let me update my resume for you. And she said, oh, don't bother. And I said, oh, and she said, I know everything I need to know about you. I've been watching you at work now for the past 2 years. And she had a very strong relationship with our then dean. We did not have associate deans yet. We had deans. And so she put my name forward, had a meeting with him. And so I taught the course. And I received a lot of support. I remember I got like this big binder full of, teaching adults and phenomenal resources that helped me get ready. And I got really excited about it, and I poured over it. And then ultimately I didn't love teaching, but like I said, it was about not having the wavelengths to concentrate on learning all this new material. And how do you teach? And why do you teach? And not being able to focus on my relationship with the students. So I did that part-time. I had 2 sections, 3 hours per week for January 2004. And then my job at Queen's just was continually like these really tiny little contracts. And I just thought, I don't know how long this is going to last. And so I left, came to the college, partial load, teaching in various departments and office administration, but also in skilled trades, hairstyling, estheticians, computer programming, all their communications courses, right? Critical thinking for the health information management, communications for health information management, pre-health, pre-nursing, like business, all over the place. I did that for 2 years. And I do remember the day that, like I'd kind of taken it because I was like, okay, I need to try this out and see if it gets better. And it did. I just remember teaching, and I was in the middle of teaching, and I looked up, and it's hard to describe, but maybe other people who teach will believe me or will understand that I looked up and suddenly I noticed my students. And the moment I noticed my students was the moment I started enjoying my work. And it just became all about that, about the relationship with them and about communicating with them. And then I applied for a full-time position that became available in the spring of 2006. And I started full-time August 2006.
And you've been a faculty member now for 22 years? Is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
At the end of this December, I'll be 22.
Wow. What's the biggest change you've seen kind of in the college since you started?
Well, do I want to point out the obvious? The building's empty.
Yeah.
And I'm on Kingston campus, and from what I hear, Brockville's worse, Cornwall's worse. And it's a shock to my system because, pre-pandemic, not everybody came to work every day, right? Some people work very effectively, like getting their marking done at home or doing their prep at home. But that didn't mean that they weren't very present colleagues in my world. And some of us came to work every day. I tended to come to work every day. That was my work style. But, most of us were at work a lot. if not every day. And it was funny because during the pandemic, we'd always finish meetings by saying how much we missed each other. Can't wait to see you again, miss you. And then we came back to campus, and it was hard to come back to campus. That would be spring 2022. It was very strange. It was very weird. It was very difficult, very awkward. But then it was like, where is everybody? Why am I hauling myself up to the yuckiest classroom on the 4th floor with broken blinds and a dirty carpet, and the rest of the building is empty? Like, why aren't there people in the classrooms? What's going on? And everybody would comment that, like, what is going on? And then we went to a tri-campus management model, which does not work. And this has got to be probably the 800th time I've said that. It worked during the pandemic when we weren't physically around each other. But now that we do have a physical place to go to work, and we have students who are physically coming into the building to learn, and we aren't physically there for them. And I remember when we first came back, and so all of a sudden it's tri-campus management, and people from Brockville and Cornwall campus, I was in a meeting with them, and somebody said, yeah, where are all the managers? They're all in Kingston, I guess. I was like, no, they're not in Kingston. Wherever they are, and I feel for them, they're behind doors on Teams meetings all day long. And I don't envy them that. But, we used to go to work, and our associate dean was in an office in the middle of our hallway with an open door. And the students were lined up to talk to us, and not always negative things. I mean, yeah, sometimes problems, like they're not doing well in your course, or they struggling with something, or they're having a conflict with a classmate. Absolutely. But also just like fun stuff, like they're proud of something they achieved, or they're organizing a student event and they want us to know about it, if not attend. So that's the really big change. This tri-campus management idea does not work. I think it's for the birds. And it has been part of, I know the workplace has changed post-pandemic. I know that. But it's many things that have turned our campuses into what they are. Part of it is the tri-campus model has exacerbated what I think is a significant problem, and that is a complete absence of physical connection and being together. And for the people who try day in and day out to come to work because they're trying to do their best, and I can see how hard it is on them. It's so depressing. It's so demoralizing. It's so lonely. And I can't do it every day anymore. I can't go in every day. It's too hard. It's too depressing. Whereas it used to be this energizing. It's so sad. It's so hard to see.
And how does that translate to students?
How does it translate to students? Part of our job is to model behavior and to model professionalism and to model this is how you are in a workplace, and they got no models. And I do see behavior on parts of students that I would never have seen before. Like, why are there 3 people going into that bathroom stall together? But what's going on? Why am I walking into a bathroom and there's students just hanging out and sitting on the floor and talking and eating a sandwich? Like, weird, unprofessional behavior that I don't think that we would see if there were faculty and staff and managers modeling behavior. So, and I think that students don't feel a connection to their college the way they would if we were all there.
Is there a memorable classroom moment that sticks with you?
How many do you like? Which one do you want? I remember one time, this is so minor, but I was late for class, and I don't know why I had it in my head that my class started at 9:30 and not 8:30. We were like in week 8 of the program. Like why would I have gotten that wrong? But I was wrong. So I'm driving, and I suddenly hits me, oh my God, I'm late. Like, I'm not totally late, but I'm going to be late for class. And this was a long time ago, so there were certainly no hands-free cell phones, and using your cell phone in your car was, probably not a good idea, but there's certainly no law against it. And I still was very careful about it. I called from a stoplight, and I called the main office, and I told them about this stupid mistake I'd made. Could you just tell my students just to wait? I'll be there, but I'll be 10 minutes late. Of course, not a big deal. So I get there and I'm 10 minutes late, and I'm like, got my coat and my boots, and I'm like, I'm not ready. I don't have anything with me. I just rush into the classroom, and they pretended like they had not been told. And one of them was like, we were calling the hospitals. And they just had me going. A little while long, they started to laugh and giggle. And I was like, you little rotten, little, aren't you lovely? So they were just funny. They were quick. They were witty. And so that's why I enjoy them. They're just charming.
Those are the things that keep you coming back.
They'll keep coming. Yeah, they keep you coming. And I still remember those people. I can see their faces and remember them all very well. And that was 20 years ago.
It's funny when you see them out in the community.
With children. Or there are 2 former students who live on my street. They own homes.
You must have done something right.
Well, one of them is a paramedic. So he did something else after business, but his cat was trying to get into my house. And I didn't know it was his cat, but the cat was like, what's going on in here? Maybe I should come and visit with you. Are you eating chips? I like chips. And no, in fact, I love chips. So that was a story about chips and students. Anyway, I talking to neighbors, I found out where the cat lived. I went down to his house and I'm like, oh my God, Tyler. And he's like, Miss Decarie. So I brought him his cat. Chips one time, a million years ago, I posted on Facebook, why are there no potato chips in my household? And the next day there was a little package of chips on my desk.
Nice. Best students ever.
And it was just the right kind of chips. Just plain, not ripple, just plain. That's all I want.
Enough salt.
Just perfect.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have a favorite course or class that you've taught?
Yeah, CLAM 39, which is a business communications course. I really love it. And if you were to say to me, why do you love it? I'd say, well, because I've turned it into something that I think is really interesting and really unique. It's all about intercultural communication and business communications and presentations and business communications. And I really had it running like a little humming machine. And today I was walking to class and it just came to me, oh, no, I need to completely change it. I need to turn it upside down and change it. And this is what I'm going to do. And so I find it very creative. And you think you've got everything kind of all set and neat and done and put away. Nope, you get a new idea. You're going to completely reinvent it. So that I really enjoy.
So can you walk me through what you were thinking when you said, hey, I want to join the union?
Well, I can tell you that I wasn't thinking anything because I never thought to myself, hey, I want to be involved in the union. So how did it happen? So initially, it started, I was still partial load and Marianne was our chief steward. A lot of people will remember her and she was encouraging me to get involved in the union. And I remember I was sitting in the office with John Anderson. He's like, yeah, you should. No, I don't think so. And then I was always, open to the union, glad I have a union. I recognize what it does for me, but I was never really engaged with it. I would go to the general membership meetings and do the voting and do what I thought was my responsibility as a member. And then a couple of things happened. So number one, I applied for the first iteration of the faculty coach role. I was not successful the first time around. And the feedback I got was that I didn't have enough tri-campus experience. And I was like, well, how do I get tri-campus experience? This is before we had really focused on tri-campus. So the opportunities weren't clear. And then I was speaking with Gordon McDougall, who was a VP, who has since retired, and I was just chatting with him about that. And I said to him, I've been thinking about getting involved with the union because then I would get tri-campus experience. And he thought that was a really good idea. So anybody who does not like the fact that I'm in the union can blame management because it was management who said, yeah, that's a good idea. So I went to convention. I wasn't even a steward yet. I really enjoyed convention, completely nerded out, in-person meeting with over 3,000 people, Robert's Rules of Order. It had everything. It was just so fascinating and exciting. And that was it. I was sold. I want to join the union. And then after the 2017 strike, I think Gillian Axten and Grant Curry, who was our president then, they got it into their head that wouldn't it be nice if I decided that I wanted to be the president after Grant retired? And they decided, and here I am. So it's nothing that I ever chose. It really isn't.
During that 2017 strike, you were playing a really active role as well with the communications group.
Yeah, so I was a steward and I was communications officer. Yeah, which is a very busy role.
Grant retired, you stepped in. That was
2022, I would say. I think it was 2022, the return to campus. Recognizing, of course, there are plenty of people who worked on campus who never left. But for the vast majority of us, we returned in the spring of 2022. And that's when I became president.
Walk me through what a week in your life looks like as the union president.
I work normal working hours, and I always have. It's very important to me, and I recognize that not everybody does for various reasons. But a normal work week for me is Monday to Friday, 8 or 8:30 until 4 or 4:30. And it's very important to me. And I put a lot of effort into making that happen. And I recognize not everybody can make that happen. So it's not the only way to do things. But if you want to know what my work week looks like, it really does look like that. I am very much compartmentalized. I do one thing at a time. I block off my calendar for things. And I have a lot of meetings, but not as many as you might think. I have a lot of one-on-one communications with Gillian Axten. She and I work very closely together. But then the other members of the executive committee, lots and lots of communications, one-on-one, sometimes lots of texting for things that are rushed. Sometimes things do feel very rushed and very urgent. I get a lot of requests for support. I can't always be the person to provide that support, not only because I'm busy, but also because I don't necessarily know. Like, just because I'm the president doesn't mean I know everything. Don't ask me to look at your SWIFT. I have no idea. I don't even understand my own. I have never, whatever. And then Tabitha will explain to me why it's wrong. I'm like, oh, I have no idea. Fine. But we also have 12, 14 stewards who signed up for a reason. They signed up because they want to help and they want to learn and they want to be of support and they want to give back to their community. So I do sometimes have to, refer somebody to somebody else. Lots of meetings with management, in particular with labor relations at the college, and lots of communications with Opposite Central. A lot. Meet so many that, the presidents from the other colleges. So it is trying to find that balance of, where am I going to put my time? And then there's teaching, and then there's students. And my job is to teach. That is my job. That's my primary job. Regardless of any offload I have to do union work, my job is my students. And I will tell my students that, you are my job. So it's a lot of meetings and it's a lot of, blocking off of time and teaching and marking.
And as you look back kind of over your term as president, what are you proud of?
I am proud that when I first started, Aunt Curry's vision or goal was to get the membership engaged with their union because we weren't engaged. He led by letting all of us lead. And so we did. And we have created, I believe, in regards to the union, we have created a culture where people feel supported and empowered and engaged. And I am sure that there are some people who don't necessarily feel engaged with the union, and that's their prerogative. Not everybody needs to be, but generally, I believe that we have created a culture of engagement with the union and engagement with each other that we did not have previously, and that I don't believe that we're getting from the official college side of things. And I think that the union is bringing to people a sense of togetherness, a sense of connection, a sense of support, a sense of leadership, a sense of connection and vision. And in my experience, we're not getting that from our college. And so I'm proud of the fact that we have created something that is positive for people, and we're not perfect, and it's not always fun, and it's not always positive. But I think generally overall that the union, all the people engaged with the union, and it doesn't mean just stewards or leadership. It also means the members at large who engage with the union and then engage with each other in relationship to what the union can do for us. I think that's been a very positive thing for people, and I'm proud that we have that in place. And if we didn't have that at this college, I don't know what we would have.
And looking ahead, what are your hopes right now for the next while?
What I'm hoping for, I don't think we're going to get. I would like some stability, but we've not had stability in almost 10 years. It's been almost constant change for 10 years now. I would hope that when the layoffs come in April, that they are fewer than we're anticipating. Wouldn't that be great? And I'm hoping that people who are able to recognize that their jobs are at risk, I hope that they are working through this process as well as they possibly can. It's not just about getting their next job, it's about grieving the loss of their job and their community and their identity. And I hope that they are reaching out for and finding the support, the direction they need to move through that.
And now, another fun episode of Is It a Gripe or a Grievance?
Hey, Gillian. I've known Sally long before she started teaching here part-time. I've been full-time for 8 years, but for some reason, Sally always gets the best classrooms. Mine are in more far-off, remote, dark parts of the building. She's got classes on Tuesdays at the same time as me, right across the hall from my office. I have to lug all my stuff to a room in the outer reaches that feels more like an outpost. I don't normally pull rank, but I want you to fix it.
Womp, womp, womp. That is just a gripe. It sucks. It sucks, but it is the way it is. We have no control over where we teach. Some of us way back when were teaching in portable classrooms on the Cornwall campus for a while there. It is just the way it is. If you have enough space to put all bums in seats and have the equipment you need to teach, then where they put it, that's completely up to them.
And now it's time for another edition of Member Spotlight.
Our next guest is someone who is a well-respected and beloved professor in the School of Professional Services and Innovation on the Kingston campus. She's even won SLC's Academic Excellence Award in 2021. While she clearly has a passion for and an incredible depth of knowledge and experience in marketing, her talents go far beyond. If you're a fan of music theater, her name may already be familiar to you. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I'm so excited to welcome Polina Buchan to the podcast. Welcome, Polina.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for inviting me.
We are going to chat today a little bit about what you refer to as your passion project. Can you tell me a little bit about what that involves?
Sure. Yeah. I create books for kids, mostly for the smallest kids, toddlers and preschoolers. And in time for the Christmas season, I've just published my latest one, which is called The Awesome True Story of Santa. And this one I'm particularly proud of because I hand illustrated the whole thing in watercolor. So that took me almost a whole year. Kind of between parenting and work and other things that I'm involved in. So I'm really excited to have that out there.
Excellent. And when you say you've just kind of created this book, I want to read what it says on the Amazon.ca site about you, and no plugs to Amazon here because they're union busters. It says, Polina is a Canadian children's writer, professor, and parent. She mainly writes books for curious toddlers. Polina is passionate about showcasing inclusive language and diversity in her work. Polina's books use simple, direct language and often display realistic imagery and photographs to engage the child. As a parent who aims to apply gentle parenting and the Montessori method with her own child, Polina reflects these principles in her books as well. Wow, that's a really special approach to writing, and you're taking on, a lot more than just writing a children's book here.
Thanks. Thank you.
I know I am going to be picking up The Awesome True Story of Santa for my grandson this year, and I'm really looking forward to it. Can you walk me through a little bit about kind of where the idea for your book came from?
For sure. Spoiler alert. The book tells the kid that Santa is not really a real person that comes to their house to bring them gifts. So maybe check with the parents before you give this book to the child to see if that's something they're on board with. But yeah, the idea for this came from this kind of internal conflict I always had about Santa Claus. I didn't grow up with Santa Claus necessarily. And strangely, before I even had a kid, it was always kind of in the back of my mind is how we're going to deal with this idea of Santa. I see, no shade to other parents, but I see people going through so much effort to keep the idea of Santa alive. And I didn't really feel like that's something that fit my idea of how I wanted to do Christmas. But at the same time, I didn't want to I keep insisting to my kid, oh, it's all a lie. It's all not real. It's all just a story that other families do and we don't do. I didn't want my kid going around and screaming at other kids that Santa's not real. So I was looking for a way to explain where the idea of Santa actually comes from, and also explain why do we like to play this pretend game at Christmas, why it's so wonderful to do that. I was looking around, I didn't quite find the exact kind of story that I was looking for, so I created it, which I've done before with some of the other books. Really, the only reason I have any of my books out there are for my daughter, and there were situations where I needed to have a conversation with her about something, but I couldn't find just the right book for the way that I wanted to have that conversation.
And that kind of gets to, that simple, direct language that you're looking at. In terms of inclusion, I know this isn't just about Santa, right? So can you talk a little bit about how this book fits with people from many different cultures as well? We're moving around, and maybe you've come to Canada from somewhere that isn't used to having Santa Claus, and all of a sudden there's this fellow in a big red suit.
That's right. And it might be confusing for some kids as well if they have a Santa-like figure where they come from, but it's not quite the same. So I grew up in Russia, and we have a Santa-like figure for kids as well. His name is Ded Moroz, basically Grandfather Frost, but he comes on New Year's, not on Christmas. He has a slightly different story around him, this whole different lore and mythology. So that could be a bit confusing to kids as well. So I do mention in this book, and there's a page kind of with illustrations of Ded Moroz, Père Noël, Sinterklaas, basically saying it doesn't matter what we call this idea. It's all about giving generously and not expecting anything in return. This book does specifically focus on Christmas because that's the holiday around which I wanted to have that conversation. In terms of inclusion, I tried my best to have a diverse kind of cast of people represented in the book, in the visuals. People of different abilities, different types of families, people of different skin tones. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it certainly does. It certainly does. In terms of your watercolors, are you self-taught? How did you start to begin illustrating as well?
Started to begin illustrating just because that's something I enjoy. I'd say I'm self-taught. I did some painting lessons when I was a child, but really it's trial and error. I was just recently dug up the very first illustration I did for this book back in the spring and compared it to the last version that I did that actually made it into the book. I was like, wow, look at that. Practice makes better. They look quite different.
Excellent. And yet you mentioned it's taken you pretty much a year to do the illustrations for the book.
Yes, just because, life is busy. I'm doing this kind of after bedtime when I feel like it as well. I was trying not to push myself. I keep reminding myself that I'm doing this because it's fun, because it's something that's interesting for me, because it's my hobby. After becoming a parent, it took me a couple of years to realize I can't have my daughter be my hobby. I need to return to some of the other things that make me happy. And the things that make me happy is being creative.
I love how you mentioned that a lot of the ideas for your books have been sparked from a dearth of quality material that's kind of out there in the marketplace. The fact that you are filling a void and a gap to be able to show something to your own child is really important. How many books have you created?
I have quite a few if you scroll my profile online for some of my books. But the ones I'd say I'm most proud of and the ones that seem to be most interesting to people based on what they're buying. One is called How Many Grown-Ups Do You Have? It's a book about unconventional families, unconventional in quotations. And that one, literally on every page, showcase a different kind of family. That one I illustrated myself as well, really trying to represent as many different configurations of families beyond even what parents a person might have, really trying to shift that conversation to grown-ups because not every kid lives with their parents or has parents. So it features all sorts of queer families, children who are adopted, children who are in foster care, who live with grandparents, multi-generational families, children who have several homes that they live between, that they travel to, polyamorous families, and people as well of all different kinds of abilities. Yeah, just to really be transparent and direct describing each family as well. So each page also describes in detail sort of what are the relationships like in their family, who's related to whom, how, and how, basically describing how many grown-ups this kid has. Trying to make a point that, these families, they have a village, and that might not look like your village, but every family is different. Again, that one came from wanting to have kind of a much more direct and transparent conversation with my child, because there's tons of books out there for little ones that talk about the fact that there's all kinds of families, but they don't really dig into, okay, but what does that mean, right? What are the types of families that children have?
And you must have a very focused following as well. So if somebody buys one of your books, they're going to see this magic that you're able to bring forward.
Fully? I don't know.
Do you get much feedback from your...
Sometimes I have some reviews. I have some word of mouth conversations as well.
But it's not about that for you, is it? It's about having something for your own child.
That's right.
That's so beautiful. And your daughter she's still very young, I'm assuming, but she must really be excited by the fact that her mom wrote this for her.
I think she is. I don't know if she puts it directly in those words, but every book on the front page says her name in the dedication, and she's really excited to find that because she likes reading her name.
That's fantastic. And really it is about filling that need. It's about telling the stories that you want to tell as a parent.
That's right.
How long have you been doing this?
So since my kid was I think she was almost 2 years old. And she had started to get really handsy, expressing her feelings with her hands in ways that was hurting people. And that was, a time that she wasn't really listening to us. She was not following directions. It wasn't enough to just tell her, oh, be kind with your hands. But what I've noticed is at the time she was really into books, and she still is. And she would kind of get the message from a book. If somebody in a book was doing it or telling her to do it, she was understanding that. So I immediately started looking for some books about being kind with your hands. I was talking to the librarian, she sent me a whole list. And all that was really out there is don't hit. That was the main message. And a lot of it was also don't hit your baby brother kind of thing. She doesn't have a baby sibling, and she wasn't hitting. She was doing other things. She was scratching and grabbing and pushing. And so I've put together just for her, I literally printed it out, put it in a folder, a book that I called Gentle Hands, a book about using our hands kindly, that had simple pictures, really basic words. It was aimed at a 1.5-year-old, and she really loved it. And then my partner mentioned it to another parent at her daycare, and they said, well, what a great idea. I printed out one for them. And then I saw it, thought, hey, maybe other people would want this as well. So I put it out there.
What a great story. And in terms of your daughter's reaction when you read The Awesome True Story of Santa to her, how does she respond?
She likes the pictures. She didn't like the book.
Really?
She used to love it back when she was smaller. She was asking to read it over and over again. But this one, she just wasn't interested in. And you know what? That's okay. I'm interested in it.
She could be your toughest critic, too.
That's right.
Your muse and your critic. Is there anything else, Polina, that you would like to mention that we haven't talked about?
If you can, please support local independent bookstores. If you are interested in my books, I would encourage you to check out, again, Bookland. They have The Awesome True Story of Santa. That's the only one they have right now. Novel Idea, they have The Awesome True Story of Santa, and they have How Many Grown-Ups Do You Have? In English and in French.
Thank you, Polina. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
And now, the 411 on the 417.
Welcome to the 411 on the 417, where we break down union news in plain language. Did you know that SLC Faculty 417 is now a composite local? We're going to chat about what that means. So here's the backstory. In 2017, part-time and sessional faculty voted to join the Ontario Public Sector Employees Union, otherwise known as OPSU-CEFPO. But it wasn't until last April that the Ontario Labour Board officially approved the membership. So now that means when we say we represent SLC faculty, we mean all faculty are now formally part of Local 417. So what does a composite local mean? It's really simple. We have one local, two groups. So full-time and partial load faculty continue with their established collective agreement, and part-time and sessional faculty are now represented within the same local, even as they work toward their first collective agreement. Now, here's an important detail. Part-time and sessional faculty don't yet pay union dues. Why? Because dues only begin when there's a collective agreement in place. So right now, the negotiation process is underway. OPSU CEFPO is preparing to bargain on behalf of part-time and sessional faculty. The goal is to secure that very first agreement. But until then, they're represented, supported, and included, but without dues. Think of it as a choir. Full-time faculty and counselors have been singing the same melody for years. Now part-time and sessional faculty are joining in with harmonies. The song doesn't get any longer. It's just richer, more complete, and more true to who we are. And here's an important part for all faculty and counselors in Local 417. To make this choir strong, every voice needs to be counted. That means signing your union card. Whether you're full-time, partial load, sessional, or part-time, your card is your membership. It's how you claim your seat at the table and your place in the choir. If you haven't already, you can sign your card electronically by visiting slcfaculty.ca.
You've been listening to Cat Tales, stories that matter to faculty and beyond. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Visit slcfaculty.ca and stay connected with us on social media.
Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the speakers and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policies, positions, or statements of OPSU CEFPO, St. Lawrence College, or any affiliated organizations. This podcast is provided for informational and educational purposes only. While every effort is made to ensure accuracy, SLC faculty, Local 417 makes no representations or warranties of any kind, express or implied, about the completeness, reliability, or suitability of the information shared. Any reliance placed on such information is strictly at the listener's own risk. Background music Sunburst by Dario Benedetti has been licensed. Any sound effects used are royalty-free. We respect copyright law and encourage listeners do the same.